teotwawki rifle setup. What is teotwawki? It's the end of the world as we know it. Same or very similar concepts would be SHTF, WROL, which stands for without rule of law. Basically what we're talking about here is the apocalypse. Basically society has collapsed and now you are basically on your own, fending for yourself or with a group, and you guys can't rely on help to come because help will not be coming. So what do I want to show you in this video? Well, just like you saw in the intro, my WROL or SHTF rifle setup. And here it is in all of its glory. Hopefully you can see the full thing there. And let's go ahead and talk about this. Alright guys, well this is going to be kind of a really simple video. Hope you don't mind, but I took notes because I want to keep this as short and as least rambly as possible because I have a tendency of doing that in my videos. So I'm going to go off that. Before we go over the different parts of my gun, I want to make it very clear that this is not a guide or anything. This is just me showing you what I have in mind, and I'll explain why for a lot of the different parts on here. Or I'll explain why it doesn't really matter what you have as long as it works. So with that all being said, let's go ahead and start delving into my rifle setup. So first and foremost, of course, we have the stock. Now this is one of those things where it really doesn't matter. Just get whatever stock you like as long as it works. This one here is the Magpul MOE-SL, which is a fine enough stock. The only stock you're not allowed to have is the Fab Defense GL Mag stock, because that thing is heavy and stupid. And I'm allowed to say that because I used to own one. In fact, if you guys follow my channel, or have for a while, you've probably seen it. We're not going to talk about the sling yet, we'll get to that in a minute, but moving forward, we have the BCM Gunfighter grip here. This kind of puts your hand at less of an aggressive angle, more ergonomic, and it's just more comfortable. You also have storage in the grip, which I do utilize. I keep batteries in there, keep adjustment tools for my sight, and etc. So it's good to have storage in your grip if you can. Right above that, we have the Radiant Talon ambidextrous safety. Ambi meaning it is on both sides. You can configure this for 45 degrees or a 90-degree throw. Currently, I have it set for 45. No real reason for it, it's just I tried both and I just preferred this one. My Beretta has a 90-degree and I like that one even more, but that's all right. Right above here we have the Palmetto State Armory ambidextrous charging handle. It's okay. I mean, I'd prefer a Radiant Raptor, but it's good enough. Iron sights, we have the Magpul M-Bus, not the Pros, just your standard M-Bus. They work well enough. If there's anything I would upgrade on this rifle, it would probably be the iron sights, but not a huge deal. Now looking here, kind of an interesting piece. This is going to be the Phase 5 Winter Trigger Guard. What that does is it allows you to have a gloved finger, and you'll really have plenty of room to pull that trigger, even with gloves. Here we have a dust cover that is custom. Again, if you follow my channel, you've seen that before. It doesn't add anything to the rifle, it just looks cool. Magazines, Duramags, any mag is going to be fine. I mean, Magpul is probably the way to go, but this is what was available, so this is what I picked up. On the other side, you can see my Phase 5 extended bolt release. So if you're familiar with the Magpul bad lever, this works much the same way. So we'll remove that magazine, pull back on the bolt, and now we push up on this guy that will lock the bolt open. And then when you're ready to fire, push down, and that will chamber your round, and then you're good to go. Now, the optic that I have, this is the Holosun 512C, and we'll get more into why I chose that in a minute. You know what, we'll just keep all of the important stuff at the end, do kind of an overview. Moving up, we have a BCM key mod QD sling swivel stud. I don't know whatever you call this thing. But attached to that, now we talk about the sling, we have the Faro Concepts Slingster. Now why did I choose this one? Well, because I already have one on my Beretta. I liked it, it looks cool, good marketing. Also, it's a padded sling, so it's very comfortable to hold and have over your shoulder for long periods of time. Moving up, we have the BCM Gunfighter vertical grip. Of course, keep it at a forward angle, because doing otherwise would be wrong. This is the Cloud Defensive Light Control System, or LCS Mark 1. The Mark 1 is for the Surefire SR07 pressure switch. Now, what is that connected to? Glad you asked. This is the Surefire Scoutlight Pro, and originally I had a Streamlight light on here, but decided to upgrade to this when I made the decision that my Beretta would not be my go-to rifle for the apocalypse, so I swapped it over to this gun. It is sitting on a BCM nylon key mod Picatinny rail adapter. That is a mouthful. Of course, we've got the Magpul Magpul M-Bus front sight. I threw a little bit of electrical tape on here just cause, why not? I mean, tons of uses for electrical tape. Lucas, T-Rex Arms, he does the same thing. And then finally, at the end here, we have the OSS muzzle brake. Now, why did I choose this? Well, preferably I would have gone with the flash hider, but they were out of stock. And the reason I got OSS in general was for my OSS Helix 556K that I am now struggling to screw on here. There we go. It's a tapered mount muzzle device and screws on relatively easily. Ignore the fact that you just watched me struggle with it. And why did I choose this one? Well, that's a funny story. Initially, I bought a Griffin Armament Recce 5 that was going to live on this rifle. Well, originally it was actually going to live on my Beretta, but then I shot the Beretta with the Recce 5 and it was awful. You get so much gas in the face, it's not even funny. So I ordered a suppressor to go on the Beretta. That ended up not happening. Why? Well, because I decided to make my AR my go-to rifle, and the OSS cans are generally a little better. Simple enough, right? But it looks really cool. Not the quietest can in the world, but it basically eliminates blowback, and your gun is a lot cleaner at the end of the day after shooting it than it would be with the Recce 5. Alrighty, I'm going to set this down, pause the video real fast, and then we'll go over some points, and also I'll double check to make sure I didn't forget something. I almost forgot to mention it, but another reason I went with the OSS Helix suppressors is because it actually has a self-torquing design. It allows for most of the gases to escape out of the front of the suppressor, but in a kind of a helical motion. I really don't know what I'm talking about here, but basically what that does is it allows the suppressor to actually torque onto itself as you're firing it. Since they are moving at kind of a spiral or in a spiral motion, it drives the suppressor further onto the mount. Another thing, it uses reverse threads, like a left-handed thread versus the standard thread that most suppressors will use. And the reason for that is it will eliminate carbon fouling, basically. It won't eliminate it, but it'll make it a lot easier to take it off the gun if you do get carbon fouling. A lot of times when you do get carbon fouling with other suppressors, you will try to remove it, and your muzzle device ends up coming off with it. So that will not happen with this can. So, it wouldn't be me, it wouldn't be my video if I didn't forget something, and of course, the thing I forgot was one of the most important parts, and the gun itself. What kind of gun is it? Well, let me start off by saying I'm a firm believer that you really don't need the Gucciest AR in the world to have a very functional rifle. If all you have is a Smith & Wesson M&P Sport, or my dad, for example, has a Wyndham weaponry, very basic, it's going to serve you just fine, as long as it's not like bottom tier, cheap as shit trash. You're going to have no problems with your rifle. With that being said, I'm going to channel my inner Wrangler star here. A man should be, have pride in the armaments that he has, whether it be his rifle, his handgun, shotgun, bow, knives, doesn't matter. You should take pride in what you have and get what you can afford within reason and go from there. Point being, you don't have to have the Gucciest stuff in the world. So what is this? This is a CMMG Mark IV, or MK4 if you want to be that guy. Why did I pick this rifle? Well, I was 17 at the time, just graduated high school, and my mom took me to Bass Pro Shops and she said, pick out a gun. Well, Bass Pro Shops, they have a whole bunch of different guns. ARs being one of them, of course. They have hunting rifles and shotguns. We looked at a couple, but this one being the tan color caught my eye, so we looked at it and I told her, well, this is the one I want. And, kind of half expecting her not to go with it because it's expensive for us, at least, because we're not rich by any means. But she decided to go ahead and get it for me. So this was my graduation present. I knew nothing about ARs at the time. I'm still not the most knowledgeable. But point being, we got this one, and I'm happy with it. CMMG is known for making high quality stuff. Of course, they make the Banshee, as well as a few other really nice rifles. And with that all being said, I'm very content with my rifle. Alright, so what are the most important things that distinguish this as a post-apocalyptic survival rifle? Well, first off, most of the parts on here are very durable. So I kind of briefly mentioned it. I swapped out my Streamlight flashlight for the Surefire because even though I've never had any issues with my Streamlight flashlight, I know Surefire is battle tested and proven to be reliable. Same with the pressure switch. The one thing I wish I would have done differently as far as the light goes is I wish I would have gotten the tail cap here that has both a push button as well as this pressure switch adapter. I can always swap that out though, it's not a huge deal. The other thing, of course, suppressor. I mean, if you're talking zombie apocalypse, you can't be out there making a ton of noise. Really, this is still going to be relatively loud. You're going to hear it and you can't fire it very many times without hearing protection. However, what this will do is kind of make it harder to tell where your shots are coming from. So with that in mind, this is going to be very beneficial to have in a situation where you need to not be found, but you still need to protect yourself or go on the offensive if need be. Of course, having a good sling is a very, very important thing when it comes to a defensive fighting rifle, because there's a video that I watched a while back about some state troopers using a rifle in a situation. None of them were using their slings, and they were going hands-on with this guy, and they were like trying to set their gun on the ground, and that doesn't resonate with me. That just doesn't make sense, because then the bad guy can grab your gun, and then you have a bigger issue where this guy may have had a knife originally, and now he has a AR, or an AR. That's a problem. Plus, when you're hiking miles upon miles, you want to have a good sling, preferably padded, that's going to save your neck and your shoulders and maybe even your back from just constant abuse. And your arms. I mean, if you're going to carry this thing without a sling, then your arms are going to get tired as hell. In fact, just holding up this gun, and yeah, I know I need to hit the gym more, but just holding up this gun earlier when I was showing you what was on this rifle was making my arms tired just doing that. So sling, very important. And now the last kind of main factor here is going to be your sighting system. The iron sights, I would like to get something better like Magpul Pros or whatever, but these are perfectly functional and I haven't had any issues with them. Now the Holosun 512C, this is the interesting thing. The reason I chose this one is because it uses a battery. Also, the battery is in kind of a quick change system. It's very interesting, although it makes me wonder why they did that with the battery and not with the mount itself, but another topic for another day, maybe the review of this optic. But the other main thing, see if that focuses, hopefully it does, you may see those solar panels up top. Now that doesn't necessarily mean this thing is going to be charged by the sun, but what it does mean is that it'll, one, save your battery when you're out in the sunlight or even under a light like this, and two, if your battery is dead, or if you don't have a battery in the optic at all, if you're out in the sun on a bright day, it will actually work, and that is super cool. Basically, no matter what, this thing is going to work unless your battery is dead and you're out in the dark. In which case, I have a flashlight and I have backup iron sights. To run one without the other would be foolish, I would say, and unless you're running just iron sights, but I mean, it's 2021, get with the program. So this sight is one of the main factors why I think this is now a more adequate apocalypse rifle setup. Now, what would I want to replace this with if I had endless amounts of money? An ACOG. I mean, you have tritium, which is going to give you about 12 years of low light shooting capabilities, as well as a fiber optic, which is going to give you, eternities of visible daylight shooting, which is good. It's also built like a tank, and the military uses it, and it's a very durable optic. The other option would be like an LPVO, or even just a scope in general. Preferably an LPVO, because then you can go as far down as 1 times magnification, almost like using a red dot, up to even 10 with today's technology, which is impressive. However, the good ones at least, and the ACOG or the Elcan Spectre, which is another super cool optic, they're all pretty pricey. And I know I just went on that tirade about taking pride in your guns, but that doesn't mean, like I was trying to explain earlier, it doesn't mean you have to spend a ton of money. Just don't buy like the bottom tier trash accessories for your gun or the gun itself. So the difference with that being like bottom tier like a Barska, then mid tier like a good Holosun, and then high tier like an Aimpoint. I think Holosun is a very great option, especially for the money, and it's something that I personally can take pride in. Not so much a Barska, and then I don't have the money lying around for an Aimpoint, because $800 I could buy 2 of these almost, and then say if I do buy one, I could use the rest of my money to make a car payment or something. So with that all being said, I think I've covered just about everything I wanted to talk about. So this has been my WROL teotwawki SHTF rifle of choice with my current setup for it, and I appreciate you guys for watching. Be sure to check out the link in the bio for my Patreon if you want to help support the channel, as well as a couple of good causes you can support down there. Let me know if you enjoy this setting here, because it sure beats being inside of my car. If you like it, then I'll do it again, and I probably will do it again either way, but still, let me know. With all that being said, I'd like to thank you all for watching, and I'll go ahead and see you all later.